So in this video, we are going to look at your complex numbers lesson. So when we identify the parts of a complex number, the standard form of a complex number is a plus bi, where the a is the real part and the bi is the imaginary part, because a complex number is made of both real and imaginary. So now let's take a look at this one. We have -7 plus 4i. So the real part is -7 and the imaginary part is 4i. Let's look at the next one. 12 minus 9i. So the real part is 12 and the imaginary part is -9i. So let's talk about adding and subtracting complex numbers. So when you're adding or subtracting complex numbers, it's just like you're adding variables. You have to make sure you have the same type of number, which means you can only add the real numbers and you can only add the imaginary numbers. You cannot add a real number to an imaginary number. So let's look at this one. We have -3 and 6. There's your two real parts. So -3 plus 6 gives you a 3. And then we can look at the complex part. So we have 5i plus 2i. So that is plus 7i. So that means your whole answer will be 3 plus 7i for this one. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. Notice that you have this minus. And if you have a minus between your parentheses, go ahead and distribute that. So that means we have 12 plus 8i minus 7 minus 4i. Now you can combine like terms. So we have our real part, that's 12 minus 7. So that gives you a 5. And then you're going to look at your imaginary part. So you have 8 minus 4. So that is a plus 4i. So your answer for this one is 5 plus 4i. So here are some additional practice problems. So I would suggest pausing the video and working these out on your own and then come back. So on the first one, add that you have an addition sign in the middle. So when you distribute the addition sign, it doesn't change. So combine your like terms. So we have 3 plus 6, that gives you a 9. And then you have the -4i plus 7i. So that gives you a positive 3i. So for this one, your answer is 8. Then over here on the second one, you have to distribute that negative. So that gives you a 7 plus 3i. So when you distribute that negative, you get a plus 9 minus I. Combine your like terms. So we have 7 plus 9 gives you a 16. And then you have 3i minus I. So that gives you a plus 2i. So that gives you 16 plus 2i. All right, now let's talk about multiplying. So don't forget that I squared is equal to -1. That is very, very important. I squared is equal to -1, and that's what we did in a previous lesson. I squared is equal to -1. Let's look at the first one. We have to distribute. So I have -3i times 6, so that gives me a -18i. -3i times 2i, so that's a -6i squared. Now, what did I say I squared is? I squared is -1. So we have to change that I squared to a -1. Okay? So that means we have -18i minus 6 times -1. So this minus 6 times -1 changes to a positive 6. So that means we have a 6 is our real part. It turns into a real number. So we have 6, and then you put your minus 18i, because remember the form is a plus bi. real parts first, then imaginary. So you write your real number first and then your imaginary number. So our answer here is 6 minus 18i. All right, let's look at the next example. Distribute again, so we get a negative, or a positive, sorry, it's a positive 10. So positive, so because negative times negative is a positive. Positive 10i minus 6i squared. Guess what? We have that I squared again. That changes to a negative 1. So that means I have 10i minus 6 times negative 1 again. So I get a 6 plus 10i as my answer. Alright, so here's an example, an additional example. So I would suggest pausing this video and trying it on your own. So for this one you have to distribute. So you get 9i times 9, so you get 81i. And then you get 9i times negative 8i. So that's where you're going to take that 9 times the 8 and the i's. So that gives you, where's my pencil, minus 72i squared. And again, that I squared changes to a negative 1. So we end up with 81i squared minus 72 times negative 1. So negative 72 times negative 1 gives you a positive 72 plus 81i. So we get 72 plus 81i, and it's that one. Alright, so now let's talk about multiplying two complex numbers together. So to do that, we're going to use our FOIL method. So that's where you take the first. So we have, you just distribute, it's just a form of distributing. So we have negative 2 times 3, so that gives you a negative 6. I'm going to use a different color on each one of these. So negative 2 times 4i gives you a negative 8i. And then we have 7i times 3, so that gives you a plus 21i. And then we have 7i times 4, so that gives you a positive 28i squared. All right, so now we can combine like terms. So that is negative 8i plus 21i. So what does that give you? So that gives you a 13i. And then you can change that I squared into a negative 1. So we have 28 times negative 1. That's a positive 13i right there. All right, so we get positive 28. So we get 28 minus 6 plus 13i. Combine your like terms again. So 28 minus 6 gives you a 22 plus 13i. So there's your answer for that one. And you're going to do the same thing on the next one. So distribute. So 3 times 5 gives you 15. Then you're going to take that 3 times 6i. So that gives you positive 18i. Negative 4 times 5. Negative 4i times 5 gives you a negative 20i. And then we have negative 4i times positive 6i, so that gives you a negative 24i squared. Combine like terms, that in the middle, so we get 18i minus 20i, so that gives you a negative 2i. Bring down your 15. And then you're going to get this minus 24 times I times negative 1, because I squared changes to a negative 1. All right, so this negative 24 times negative 1 changes to a positive 24. So combine your positive 24 with 15. So that gives you 39 minus 2i. Okay? Okay, so we have two more examples right here. So on the first example, you're going to distribute. So you have 8 times the 3. So you're going to get the 24. And then you have 8 times 2i, so that's plus 16i. And then we have negative 3i times 3, so that is a minus 9i. Negative 3i times 2i gives you a negative 6i squared. So combine your like terms, and you're going to get a positive 7i. Then at the end, we have a minus 6 times negative 1, because remember that I squared changes to negative 1. So here we have negative 6 times negative 1 gives you a positive 6. So take that positive 6, add it to 24, and you're going to get 30 plus 7i. So your answer for that one is D. So on the next one, we have 4 minus 2i all squared. So anytime you see that all squared right there, that means you write it twice. So we have 4 minus 2i times 4 minus 2i. And then distribute like we just did. So 4 times 4 gives you 16. 4 times negative 2i gives you a negative 8i. And then we have negative 2i times 4, another negative 8i. And then we have negative 2i times negative 2i, so it's a positive 4i squared. Combine your like terms, so that's a negative 16i. Then at the very end, we have a plus 4 times negative 1. Combine your like terms, so this positive 4 times negative 1 changes to a minus 4, so that means I have 16 minus 16i minus 4. Combine like terms, so 16 minus 4 gives you a 12 minus 16i. So our answer will be 12 minus 16i, and that is B